Bull-Nassau and Bull-Hertog formed through medieval land treaties and feudal trades between Dutch counts and Belgian dukes, never fully resolved. Streets weave through Dutch and Belgian territory block by block, marked by white crosses embedded in pavement. The flat lowland climate and farmland offer no natural boundary, making the border purely political. Some houses pay taxes to two countries depending on their front door's location, a quirk unmatched anywhere else on Earth. Lesotho sits atop the Malota Drakensberg mountain range, formed by ancient volcanic uplift and centuries of erosion carving deep river valleys. Its high elevation gives it a cooler climate than surrounding South Africa, allowing snowfall in winter. Basotho herders still cross rugged terrain on horseback, wrapped in wool blankets against the cold. Politically encircled since British colonial negotiations in the 1800s, Lesotho remains a rare example of full territorial enclosure. Kaliningrad was once German Königsberg, annexed by the Soviet Union after World War II and resettled with Russian citizens. Bordering the Baltic Sea, its coastline features amber-rich beaches and pine forests shaped by glacial retreat. The temperate maritime climate supports fishing and shipping industries. Cut off from mainland Russia by European Union states, it functions as a strategic naval base, making it one of the most geopolitically sensitive exclaves in the world. The Argentina-Chile border traces the Andes mountain range, formed by the ongoing collision of the Nazca and South American tectonic plates. This active geology creates towering peaks, volcanic activity, and frequent earthquakes. Climate shifts drastically along its length, from arid deserts in the north to icy glacial fields in Patagonia. The border's zigzagging shape follows watershed divides, making it one of the longest and most physically dramatic frontiers on the planet. Big Diomede and Little Diomede formed from ancient land bridges connecting Asia and North America during the last ice age. Separated by the international date line, crossing between them technically means traveling nearly a full day forward or backward in time. The Arctic climate brings frozen seas in winter, once allowing islanders to walk across the ice. Cold War tensions sealed the border, earning the nickname Ice Curtain between two superpowers. The demilitarized zone was established after the 1953 Korean War armistice, stretching 250 kilometers along the original ceasefire line. Ironically, decades without human development turned this buffer zone into an accidental wildlife sanctuary, home to rare cranes and endangered species. The temperate climate supports dense forests reclaiming abandoned villages. Despite its peaceful ecology, landmines and guard posts make it one of the tensest and most heavily guarded borders in modern history. Located on the island of Borneo, this border resulted from British colonial administrators annexing Lembang from Brunei's Sultanate in 1890. Dense tropical rainforest and winding rivers separate Brunei's two territorial halves, creating navigation challenges. The equatorial climate fuels lush biodiversity, including orangutans and hornbills. Brunei has never formally accepted the loss of Lembang, making this quiet river border one of Southeast Asia's most enduring unresolved territorial disputes. Katshathivu Island sits in the shallow, sediment-rich Pork Strait, formed by ancient land connections between Sri Lanka and India before rising sea levels submerged the land bridge. Ceded to Sri Lanka in a 1974 maritime agreement, it remains uninhabited except for a historic church visited during an annual festival. Tamil Nadu fishermen frequently cross into Sri Lankan waters here, sparking ongoing diplomatic friction over fishing rights in this narrow, resource-rich channel. Point Roberts exists because the US-Canada border was drawn straight along the 49th parallel in 1846, accidentally slicing off this peninsula from the mainland. Surrounded by the Strait of Georgia, its mild coastal climate supports fishing and quiet residential life. Residents must cross Canadian territory just to reach the rest of Washington state. This geographic accident created a rare practical exclave, where daily life depends entirely on cooperation between two countries. Ceuta occupies a rocky peninsula on Morocco's northern coast, formed by ancient volcanic activity near the Strait of Gibraltar. Its Mediterranean climate and strategic position made it valuable to Phoenicians, Romans, and later Spain. Towering double fences with razor wire now separate European and African soil, built to control migration. Despite Morocco's territorial claims, Ceuta remains under Spanish control, making it a persistent flashpoint in European border politics. Campione d'Italia sits on the eastern shore of Lake Lugano, formed by glacial carving during the last ice age. Surrounded entirely by Swiss canton Ticino, it remained Italian due to a medieval monastery donation centuries ago. The alpine lake climate supports tourism and a famous casino economy. Residents use Swiss postal codes and currency while holding Italian citizenship, creating an unusual dual identity enclave nestled within the Swiss Alps. Musandam formed from tectonic uplift, creating jagged limestone mountains that plunge directly into the Arabian Sea, resembling Norwegian fjords. This exclave is physically cut off from Oman by United Arab Emirates territory, accessible mainly by boat or a single mountain road. Arid desert climate contrasts with surprisingly deep turquoise waters below. Its location overlooking the Strait of Hormuz makes it strategically vital, as nearly a fifth of global oil shipments pass through nearby waters. Drawn by Dutch and German colonial powers in the late 1800s, this border follows the 141st meridian rather than any natural feature. Dense equatorial rainforest, swamps, and the Fly River crisscross the line, home to extraordinary biodiversity including birds of paradise. The strait border ignores tribal boundaries, splitting indigenous Papuan communities across two nations. Its artificial geometry stands in stark contrast to the wild, untamed jungle terrain it cuts directly through. The Cooch Behar enclaves emerged from 18th century disputes between local kings, creating pockets of Indian territory inside Bangladesh, and Bangladeshi pockets inside India, some containing enclaves of their own. Flat, fertile Ganges Delta land supports rice farming and dense population. A 2015 land boundary agreement finally exchanged most enclaves, ending decades of stateless confusion for over 50,000 residents. It remains one of history's strangest border drawing outcomes. Naco sits in the Sonoran Desert, where flat scrubland offered no natural barrier, so a manufactured steel fence now defines the border instead. Hot, arid conditions and sparse vegetation stretch across both sides identically. Families once freely crossed between Naco, Arizona, and Naco, Sonora before fortification intensified after 2006. The fence cuts directly through what was once shared social and economic life, symbolizing the human cost of hardened modern borders. Biatoral exists due to conflicting colonial-era border definitions between Egypt and Sudan, each preferring a different, more resource-rich neighboring region instead. This scorching Sahara triangle features rocky plateaus and almost no vegetation, with no permanent residents. Its extreme desert climate offers little incentive for development. Ironically, claiming Biatoral would force a nation to abandon a larger disputed area, leaving the strange 2,060 square kilometre patch belonging to absolutely no one. Bussingen am Hokerhain became isolated from Germany in 1918 when a Swiss village refused to trade territory during boundary negotiations. Sitting along the High Rhine, the area shares Switzerland's alpine foothill climate and rolling farmland. Residents rely on Swiss infrastructure, phone codes, and customs despite holding German citizenship. This left the town technically part of Germany's customs union with Switzerland, creating one of Europe's most functionally blended, quietly confusing border enclaves. Melilla sits on a rocky Mediterranean promontory in northeastern Morocco, shaped by volcanic remnants and coastal erosion over millennia. Spain has held it since 1497, predating Morocco's modern statehood. Its arid Mediterranean climate supports scrubland surrounding heavily fortified perimeter fencing. Layers of barbed wire and surveillance towers mark Europe's second African land border. Despite Moroccan sovereignty claims, Melilla remains fiercely defended, drawing thousands of migrants attempting crossing each year. The northwest angle formed from an inaccurate 1783 treaty map that misjudged the lake of the wood's true shape and boundaries. Boreal forest, granite outcrops, and glacially carved lakes define this isolated Minnesota exclave. Cold continental winters bring ice fishing and forestry as primary livelihoods. Reaching it by road requires driving through Manitoba, Canada, making this quirky cartographic mistake a lasting geographic oddity within the Northern American wilderness. The Caprivi Strip was carved out in an 1890 treaty between Britain and Germany, aiming to connect German southwest Africa to the Zambezi River. Flat floodplains, wetlands, and seasonal flooding define this thin corridor bordering 5 countries. Its subtropical climate sustains elephant migration routes and rich wetland biodiversity within Bwabwata National Park. Despite ambitious colonial intentions, the river route never delivered the trade access Germany originally envisioned, leaving a strange leftover strip of land. This maritime border runs through the Timor Sea, a shallow continental shelf formed by Australia's tectonic plate extending toward Timor's volcanic island arc-rich offshore oil and gas reserves made the exact boundary fiercely contested for decades. Tropical monsoon climate and coral reef ecosystems surround the disputed waters. A landmark 2018 treaty finally redrew the line, giving East Timor greater maritime territory and resolving one of the Asia-Pacific's longest-running boundary disputes.